Okay, let's dive into this. When we tune into professional tennis, we usually just see this world of pristine whites, gleaming trophies, and multi-million-dollar endorsements. But beneath that glamorous surface, there's a high-stakes, intensely pressurized reality that pretty much never makes it into the highlight reels. Today, we're unpacking the hidden realities of tennis prodigies and what it actually costs to achieve true greatness.
To really anchor our explainer today, we're looking at Ryan P. Parker's brilliant book, Beyond the Baseline: Triumphs and Trials. This completely strips away your typical sports documentary narrative. Instead, it focuses on a really unique group of athletes labeled as one-slam wonders. We're talking about generational talents who reached the absolute peak of the sport, but just once.
Which naturally brings us to a super fascinating yet totally ignored question. What actually happens after that ultimate victory? We're so conditioned to just expect athletes to stack Grand Slams year after year, right? Well, Parker's work subverts that expectation entirely. It forces us to look at the dark side of sudden, massive glory. We're diving into the untold stories of what happens when the cheering finally stops, and that brutal whiplash of public scrutiny, physical breakdown, and sheer mental exhaustion really begins.
Let's start with Jennifer Capriati. Honestly, her story is largely defined by the completely suffocating burden of being a prodigy. Born into a tennis-obsessed family, she was this pint-sized powerhouse. By age 13, she achieved the unthinkable, snagging the French Open junior title. Just imagine carrying that kind of weight, the entire world prematurely declaring a literal 13-year-old child the absolute, undisputed future of women's tennis.
And man, the years that followed were a complete roller coaster of extremes. After her 1990 pro debut, the astronomical media pressure just fractured her whole narrative. By 1993, that unrelenting spotlight fueled some serious rebellion, substance struggles, and a highly publicized shoplifting arrest that halted her momentum entirely. Everyone thought she was destined to be a tragic cautionary tale. But then, in a staggering reversal, she mounted an unbelievable comeback to win the 2001 Australian Open. No way anyone saw that coming.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer grit required to survive a massive fall from grace. Because reclaiming her crown, that wasn't luck. She rebuilt her game and her life from the ground up. She went through this grueling physical conditioning regimen, forged ironclad mental resilience, and eventually took down reigning champions like Martina Hingis and Kim Clijsters. But even more importantly, she turned her darkest moments into a powerful platform for mental health advocacy, showing us all how to turn our deepest personal struggles into profound strength.
Let's transition over and see how this builds into the journey of our next athlete, Mark Philippoussis. If Capriati's story highlights the mental burden of early fame, Mark's reveals the raw, explosive cost of physical power. Known affectionately as the Scud, this young Australian was an absolute force of nature. His raw power just electrified the sport, peaking when he took down the legendary Pete Sampras on his way to an unforgettable 1996 U.S. Open victory. It literally felt like the dawn of a whole new, aggressive era.
So the crucial point is this: the very weapon that made him a champion ultimately betrayed him. The tragic irony of Philippoussis' career is that he swung with such violent, booming power on his serves that he developed persistent, career-derailing shoulder struggles. Combine that with chronic knee troubles that severely hindered his agility and mobility, his career devolved into this relentless cycle of surgery and rehab, permanently derailing his quest for multiple Grand Slams.
If you find this analysis valuable, please like and subscribe to Knowledge Lighthouse to help us bring more truths to light.
Okay, moving on to our third subject, Adriano Panatta. His story really highlights what Parker calls the trap of specialization. Deeply rooted in the vibrant, super passionate Italian tennis scene, Panatta reached his absolute zenith in 1976, claiming a legendary French Open victory at Roland Garros. He wasn't just a player, the guy was a cultural icon. His elegant game was just perfectly calibrated for the slow, demanding red clay.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer contrast it presents and what it teaches us about adaptability. Panatta possessed this unparalleled mastery and sliding technique on the red clay. He was the undisputed king of the clay courts, capable of outmaneuvering literally anyone. But take him off the clay? On faster, lower-bouncing surfaces like Wimbledon's grass or the hard courts of the U.S. Open, he faced immense mental and strategic struggles. His unique specialization basically became a double-edged sword, severely limiting his Grand Slam success anywhere outside of Paris. But what Parker's book does so beautifully is show us that the court is definitely not the end of the story. Finding life beyond the baseline is probably the greatest victory for these athletes.
Capriati channeled all her struggles into mental health advocacy, helping destigmatize the pressures athletes face. Philippoussis adapted to his physical limitations and ended up exploring new passions and successful business ventures. And Panatta, he became a foundational pillar in mentoring the next generation and shaping Italian tennis development.
So this leaves us with a deeply provocative question. Is true greatness really defined by the number of trophies on a shelf, or by surviving the game itself? These three athletes might only have one Grand Slam each, but their enduring legacy is an absolute masterclass in the sheer resilience required to overcome life's unpredictable curveballs. They didn't just survive the intense pressure cooker of professional sports, they conquered their own trials to build meaningful, inspiring lives. For the complete deep dive on the paperback, get your high-quality paperback edition on Amazon via the link in the description. Add it to your collection today. Please share this explainer and check the description for more.